This episode is brought to you by Netflix. The MLB at Field of Dreams returns. Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies face Byron Buxton and the Minnesota Twins at the iconic Field of Dreams ballpark. The field is calling. Watch the MLB at Field of Dreams game live on Netflix Thursday, August 13th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
I can't stop scratching my downtown. Yeah, but I'm not itching to go downtown and tell a receptionist I'm here to talk about my downtown. Some things you'd rather type than say out loud.
There's no question too embarrassing for Amazon Health AI. Chat your symptoms and get virtual care 24/7. Healthcare just got less painful.
I got a phone call from my father-in-law, Michelle's dad, saying, Neil, Michelle and the girls have been in a crash. Police have told us it's very serious. They don't know whether she'll survive. She's in hospital in Lancaster.
There are days that unfold as planned. And then there are days that divide your life into before and after. For some, that day comes under mortar fire. For others, it comes on a birthday that will never be celebrated the same way again. Today, we meet a man whose life was interrupted by both. Neil Jurd, welcome to the show, my friend.
Steve, it's lovely to meet you, and it's an honor.
If you're okay with this, before the soldier, before the mortar attacks, before leading the battalion of men, there was Neil Jurd. What did that world look like back then? Before you can name it after that. What were your hobbies? What'd you like to do?
What, you mean when I was growing up?
Sure.
I mean kind of in the background now?
Before the soldier, before horrific car crash, the young man that grew up, what were your ambitions? What were your life's desires? Were you always wanting to be a military man? Did you come from a military family?
So yes and no. So I always wanted to join the army.
Okay.
My dad was horrified because he'd done national service. He'd done compulsory military service and absolutely hated it.
Okay.
He was a journalist and had his career interrupted. He just started a journalism career and he had his career interrupted to do military service, and he just didn't enjoy it, which I completely understand, because if you don't want to do a job, being made to do it for I think he did a year. I think he resented it. He didn't love the army, so I think he found it strange that I wanted to join. And I couldn't tell you why. I never didn't want to do it. There was nothing else that interested me in as a job, probably from when I was about 10 onwards.
You had that mindset, that army.
Yeah, and I was right. I mean, when I was in the army, I absolutely loved it. In terms of what I did in my spare time, I was a Cub Scout when I was younger. I played football. I played hockey. I've always read a lot, like a huge amount. I could lose myself in books or easily for a day. We'd go on family holidays, and I would often just read. I used to run a lot. I've always been into endurance type sport, so I used to run really quite ridiculous distances. I used to quite happily go and run 24 miles. I had this kind of circuit that was about 8 miles, so I would do it 3 times when I was in my mid-teens. So you go, a picture of a strangely obsessive child.
No, I have a nephew that for the life of me I can't figure out why he laces them up, and on a 25-degree day, he'll go out and run 5K just for fun of it. But it's his world. It's where he's in his element, and he loves it. So, may I ask, and I don't want to pry too hard, did you have a mom? Did you have a mom and father growing up, or raised by mom, or raised by both, or?
So I did, but I lost my mum when I was 16.
Okay.
So she died of cancer when I was at school. So I was brought up by both of them, and then by my dad for the last few years of my teens.
Very similar direction as mine. My mom passed away of pancreatic cancer when just in my early 20s. So such a big loss, isn't it? Something you never think you can fill.
I think that the people that we lose as we get older, I feel there's something missing in terms of shared collective memory. There's stuff I can't remember, and I mean, even now, I think my mum should still be alive. She probably, might still be alive at this age, and I'd like to be able to say, what about that time? Where was that? We went on holiday. Who was that person who was there? And I don't know, but she would know. So I think we lose a lot, and we lose that next stage of friendship with our parents. When we stop being a dependent and we start to become more useful in the world, it changes our relationship, I think, with our parents. And you and I would have missed out on that to some degree with our mothers.
Yeah, big time. Thanks. That gives me a great picture of the before. When you first joined the army, what did you believe life would look like for you as a young man now in a new career, a uniform? What did you paint the picture in your mind as a soldier?
So Sandhurst was this wonderful, the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst is this very, very established, traditional, rather lovely venue in the south of England. And it was built in 1802, I think. So it's this very grand building. And we spent a year there, and it's a really hard year. We're in this amazing environment, but we get really run ragged, and it's a tough experience, but also a very beautiful place to go through a tough experience. And I was lucky. My first posting from Sandhurst was a year in Belize, and I don't know how much you know about Belize, but it's just it's kind of a holiday destination.
Okay.
It's also got jungles, and we were there because at the time there was a threat to Belize from Guatemala, but it was a very, very limited threat by the time I was there. So I had this incredible year where I did a lot of scuba diving. I did some soldiering. I spent some time in the jungle. But mostly I just had the most wonderful year of my life.
And your boots on the ground, right? If I'm not mistaken, it wasn't Air Force. It wasn't. Infantry, Army? Okay.
No, Army logistics. But we still did a jungle course.
Okay.
I did some jungle expeditions. I've always been very into adventurous training of some, diving, mountaineering, skiing, and so on. So beyond that, I don't know. I don't think I really overthought it. I imagined I'd stay in the army. There wasn't really much going on at the time that was particularly dangerous, apart from the Bosnia, former Yugoslavia operations, which were quite limited, in terms of how many people were there. So I don't know. I just saw myself. I don't think I overthought it, Steve. Really. I just kept turning up.
And these were NATO? Were these NATO assignments that? Somewhere, yeah.
So the former Yugoslavia was a NATO operation. Other stuff I did, I was in Sierra Leone for a year in 2001, which is just at the tail end of the civil war there. That was just a British operation. Served in Yemen later on, which was another British operation.
Wow.
Iraq was, the same operation that the Americans were part of, but we were down south. So I had quite, but I wasn't really doing anything. It only got dangerous something like 15 years into my career when I went to Iraq. Before that, I remember having a lot of fun and probably relatively calm career.
The Brits, where we look at the U.S., they're very patriotic, American flag and apple pie and that that the good pride to have in your country. And Canadians were known for, our friendliness and whatever. Was there great camaraderie amongst the men and women? And was it a very noble calling to serve your country?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a great camaraderie between those of us that were in the army.
Yeah.
I led Gurkha soldiers. So my command in Iraq was Gurkhas who are from Nepal, and an augmentation of soldiers from other parts of the British Army, which involved a lot of soldiers from Commonwealth countries, so kind of former British Empire countries.
Can we park there for a few minutes and talk about Iraq? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. You used words that are foreign to me. Gurkhas. Are these specialized or elite members, or you hear different titles for different? You hear SEALs or Rangers or sniper, that kind of thing. Is Gurkhas something like that? And if so, can you kind of build on that for me?
Yeah, sure. So the Gurkhas are soldiers recruited from Nepal, and the history of this goes back something like 250 years to when the British were conquering India and got stuck at Nepal. We couldn't conquer Nepal. And it's because the Nepalis were such incredible fighters. They have an incredible reputation as tough soldiers. So a compromise was met where we were allowed to recruit Gurkhas into the British Indian Army, as it was. And they've got the most remarkable fighting reputation, the Gurkhas. The selection, I was actually in Nepal until just over a week ago. Actually, I got back at the Gurkha depot in Pokhara, and the recruitment is incredibly tough. I mean, it's worth looking it up, but I think the figure is something like 1 in 200 applicants get selected, and they are incredible. I mean, the fitness standard that they have to achieve is remarkable. Every course they do in the British Army, Gurkhas pretty much come top. They're incredibly fit. They're highly intelligent because of the selection criteria, because like 1 in 200, they're all extremely sharp, very, very bright lads. And of course they do it because the pay in the British Army is comparatively extremely high compared to what generally people earn in Nepal. So it's a very, very attractive job for Nepal. The Indian Army also still has Gurkha regiments after partition between India and Pakistan. When India got independence, half of the Gurkha regiments stayed in the British Army, and the other half went to the Indian Army. So there's Gurkha regiments across the two armies.
And you arrive in Iraq as squadron commander. And what type of environment did you always arrive into? Was it from the get-go? Was it kind of a hornet's nest of, head down, whatever? Or was it life was going along fine until it wasn't? And what did that look like if that was the case?
No, it was dangerous from the beginning, but these things, they're not dangerous all the time. So our job was, we were a Gurkha squadron, but a logistics squadron, and our job was the resupply of other. So I had soldiers all over, not all over, but in different bases in southern Iraq, and also some over the border in an American base in Kuwait. But on our main bases, which were a place called Shaiba, and I also had the Shat Al Arab Hotel and Basra Palace, which was one of Saddam Hussein's former palaces. I had detachments at those two places. Wow. We were under mortar or rocket fire most days, not all day, but just at some point, usually the alarms would go off, which was like just a sort of siren, a wailing siren sort of thing. And then you'd have maybe 10 seconds and then the stuff would start landing. But it would only be like, sometimes it would be 5 rounds, 10 rounds. Sometimes it might be 20. Sometimes it would go on for a sustained period. But this stuff was big, and it was over the course of 6 or 7 months. You would constantly just, and then this stuff would come in, and it sounds. I mean, a rocket going past. I remember it sounding exactly. One came very close to our tent. I remember one night, well, many nights actually, but I remember one particular, and it sounded like a train going past. But we were in tents in the middle of the desert. But it sounded like a high-speed train shooting past.
Wow.
But oddly, I don't remember often being scared by it. Like genuinely, it was just I guess. Maybe I've always been able to tune out the reality. Maybe that's it. I can tune out the reality that this is dangerous. And
I would imagine that what makes for a good leader. I mean, because fear would have to look. It would have to look like something completely different than how we normally react when you're responsible for others and you're leading others. So I'm sure composure is one of the key components to being a very well organized leader and having men that trust your leadership as well.
Yeah, I think I am emotionally kind of in the center. I don't have extreme highs or extreme lows.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some of the military selection generally, because I would say the people who were around me were very much in the same mold.
Okay.
Where after I left the army, I think I found people's heightened emotional reactions to relatively small things quite surprising, because I'd had a career where people were fairly calm, and we were all in the same situation. When these mortars and rockets were coming in, we were all in equal danger. And I don't know, sometimes it was funny. I remember being in the dining tent at one stage, and because it was just all, it could happen any time. And we took cover on the floor of the tent. And I remember I'd left. This sounds silly, you see. You think soldiering can be quite mundane. I'd left my ice cream on the wooden trestle table, and one of my corporals who was sat opposite me had done the same thing. So we laughed and leant up and got our ice creams and carried on, because what can you do? You can't return fire. These are mortars being sent from several miles away, and anyway, it wasn't our job to return fire, even if we could have. But you and by the time that they'll fire a few mortars and then they'll shoot off somewhere anyway. They'd go. They were firing it from built up civilian areas outside the camp. But it was like that from the beginning. It never got better. We moved camp to another camp that was even less secure, actually. And yeah, we were under fire for the whole time.
Was there ever a moment that
sounds really dramatic? I mean, but almost every day for the whole tour, we were under fire of some sort. I mean, I have to say, some people had it much, much harder than me. There were people who were frontline fighting for the whole tour. That's a whole different level of stress and pressure, and that wasn't what I went through.
When a soldier has time to himself, and you don't have to be brave in front of anyone, those quiet moments, are there moments when you think that there's a real possibility I may not come home from this? Or are these things, is there just such stoicism that's built in, those thoughts are automatically squashed and done away with right away?
I mostly didn't think that.
Yes.
I when one particular incident where a mortar landed extremely close to me and probably should have done a lot more damage to me than it did. That's the dent in my face is shrapnel from that, but
Yeah.
it was only like maybe a few meters. I don't really know, but like maybe 3 or 4 meters away, and it was an 82. It was Chinese. Anyway, it was a big mortar, and it probably should have done me a lot more damage than it did. And I after that I was conscious that I'd got lucky on in that particular incident.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what can you do? I still had another few months to do in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I'd been a bit lucky that time, but arguably I'd also been quite unlucky to be stood right where the water left. So I kind of thought that probably won't happen again.
Yeah. Depends on what side of the coin you consider lucky, I guess.
But I didn't genuinely worry too much. I tried to have a fairly normal.
Mm-hmm.
I used to read when I had spare time.
Mm-hmm.
I used to run. We used to have to carry our body armor and helmet when we went for a run. But I would run because I've always thought that physical fitness is a very good way of balancing stress.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly for me, it always has been.
Did combat change the way that you view ordinary problems today when you're not in a military zone or anything like that? I have friends that have served and they still live compartmentalized where they can't shake that part of serving and it shows up in everyday life. And I was just curious, did the military come home with you, and did it change how you viewed ordinary problems or how you dealt with life?
I think at first it probably did in a bad way.
Okay.
Not like, again, not in a really dramatic bad way, but I just remember when I heard sirens, if police sirens went off,
Yeah.
I didn't dive for cover, but my head wanted me to, and I'd sort of freeze, but that was only for a few weeks. And I remember not being able to think properly for a while, just not being able to. No, I think maybe it was that things didn't seem that important. You come back to life I was on an army base in the south of England, and I remember the commanding officers conference. So the lieutenant colonel that I was a major at the time, the one rank above me that I worked for, who hadn't been in Iraq. So my Gurkha squadron had been detached to a regiment of other Gurkha units. I came back to a British regiment as the one Gurkha unit in it, and the CO was talking about a dentist's chair or something in the base, and I remember being really irritated and probably showing my irritation because it just seemed so trivial compared to the fact that, like, maybe 2 weeks before, we'd been under fire, and we weren't. This commanding officer had delayed us going on leave, and he'd kind of been quite petty with us coming back from operations.
Wow.
Because in his world, all this stuff was really important, and in our world, gosh, we just all survived, and literally none of us had been killed or seriously injured, and we just needed some time off. So I remember then finding it hard to find life back here very interesting, but that didn't last particularly long. And then, of course, I got sent off to Yemen anyway a few months after that. In the long term, no. And I try and remind myself that nothing I do now really has consequences that are anything like life or death situation we were in out there. I run a business now. I love running my business, and if something goes wrong, well, it's not going to go that wrong. I think
New perspective.
maybe it's steadied me, or maybe nothing's really changed in the long run.
Are you okay if we talk a little bit about your 40th birthday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Michelle, who Michelle was to you and how you met and what made her such a wonderful woman to you.
Well, Michelle was my first wife.
Yes.
I met her in Belize. She was flying helicopters for the Royal Air Force. We got married a couple of years later, in 1996. We had two children, Matilda and Elsa, who are now 18 and 20 at the time that we're recording this.
Mm.
We were married in 96 and were very happily married for about 13 years.
Take us to that day, if you can. How did you receive the news? This was your 40th birthday. It's supposed to be one of the happiest days on the calendar, and certainly a year that everyone marks on their calendar as something special at 40. But yet you got a very different birthday, and you received somehow the news that Michelle had passed. Tell us, if you're okay, to a little bit about how the accident happened, and then how you were first given the news.
Well, it was actually the accident was the evening before my birthday, and I had just left the army like weeks before, and I was working for a company called British Sugar. I had a lovely job. I couldn't believe how easy life was working for this civilian company, and I'd just gone for a beer with my boss at British Sugar, who had previously been my boss in the army, which is, it was him that said, "Neil, you need to come and work here." So we'd gone for a beer with a couple of others. I just got to the pub, and my phone rang because this is weekday, so I should probably explain, I was working a couple of hours away from home at the time. No, probably more than that, about 4 hours away from home at the time. And Michelle and I were due to meet up the weekend in London, and we're going to go to. She bought me tickets to the Royal Ballet, and we were staying in a really nice hotel. And she'd planned a really special weekend. And I got a phone call from my father-in-law, Michelle's dad, saying, "Neil, Michelle and the girls have been in a crash. The police have told us it's very serious. They don't know whether she'll survive. She's in hospital in Lancaster." So I got in the car and drove home. Drove a very, very long, horrible drive. And I got to the hospital at about midnight, I think, and I was met by two police officers who told me more, and they were the family liaison police officers. I still remember Gordon Robson, his name was, the lead. These two, and he was brilliant. We became friends over the next year or so, but so he gave me a very straight situation briefing, actually, as to what I was going to find and how serious it was. And then a doctor also told me how serious it was. And then I went into just to Michelle, who was alive but being kept artificially alive, and uh, later I was told that basically they kept her alive until I got there. That she had no she'd been in a road crash,
Yeah.
caused by as it turned out, a local company here who had dangerous driving, and the guy was prosecuted. So it was an unnecessary death, and I can't say any. I mean, there's nothing more to it, Steve. It was just
so sorry.
devastating.
Yeah. Nothing that military can prepare you for, nothing that any skill can prepare you for.
No.
It's when all the oxygen just gets sucked out of life, and my heart hurts for you. The girls, were they also in the automobile?
Yeah, some injuries, but nothing huge.
So you're 40 years old, and now you're the father of two younger children. What were their ages when you were 40? When they had 2 and 4?
2 and 4. Yeah.
Oh boy. How do you explain something like that to minds that are just developing life? Everything as a 2 and a 4-year-old is all about them normally, right? If they soak things up like a sponge, knowledge, it must have been such a confusing and horrific experience.
You can't explain it to them.
No.
There is no, in my experience, there's nothing you can say to a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old which will allow them to understand the concept of death, and definitely not sudden death. And they were very, very close to Michelle. I mean, while I'd been in Iraq and while I'd been in Yemen, she'd been bringing them up more than I had. I mean, like most military families, the soldiers away, the other partner's bringing up the kids. So for them, she was. I mean, we were all very close, but she was their anchor, and I was probably more peripheral at that point. So for her to be gone in their life was just something they just could not understand it. And for, I don't know, horrible weeks or months or maybe even longer, they would keep saying, "But I want money." So
what did strength look like, Neil, for those days and years? Because you're raising 2 young kids. I mean, there's military strength, and then what did strength look like to a dad now with a 2 and a 4-year-old and taking them all the way up through their adolescent years and young girls?
Well, it's changed a lot over time. I mean, at first, I was just surviving.
Yeah,
because I was deeply hurt myself.
Yeah,
and if I could have just gone away, if we hadn't had children, I don't know, I'd have taken myself away somewhere to recover, to repair, because there was so much going on, and we both just left the forces, and our life was supposed to be safe and calm. And we also had a house that we were doing up. We just bought a house, not the one I live in now, but we bought a house, and Michelle was running that project. So walls were stripped back to stone, and we were in absolute turmoil. So to then have a toddler. I mean, my younger daughter was still in that. And she was very, very young, and even my older one was still basically a toddler. So it was overwhelmingly bad. I couldn't see any positivity in the world.
Yeah. How long did that last, do you think, if you remember looking back now, before there was a glimmer of some sort of hope?
Months when every day was bad. When
Yes.
It just felt like even when there were good times, they didn't feel real. They didn't feel like they should be good or could be good. And even if the girls were happy, still just somehow felt wrong. And then there was a shift into a time when it was still bad, but there were some good times, some little sparks of when I actually felt happy. And then it started to shift more and more until finally, the seesaw tips the other way, and it's mostly good, apart from it's still there. It's still in the background. It takes years. A military padre, so a military chaplain, the one from my regiment in Iraq, he told me later. He said, Neil, it takes 7 or 8 years to get over bereavement like this. And he told me this quite early on, and he was right. I think it did. I think it was 7 or 8 years.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Michelle Jurd Trust, that from loss comes somewhat of a legacy? Are you able to share some of that?
Yeah, well, I set the charity up actually initially because I always felt I got the funeral wrong, because I wasn't ready to be planning a funeral for my wife, so I just didn't know how to do it, and I wanted to do something. I mean, how do you honor someone who should have lived for another 40, 50 years? What can you do to keep their memory going? And so I set up a charity. Well, no, initially I did a memorial dinner. So after a year, I did a memorial dinner I wanted to be a positive event in Michelle's memory, where people gathered and had a good night. We did that, and it raised quite a lot of money, something like close to 30,000, I think, pounds, to 25,000-30,000 pounds.
And was that not expected, but it was the idea to try and raise support for young people at that time, or out of this dinner where people were so gracious and generous, it became something from that?
No, the intention was to raise money on that first event.
Yes.
But it was just a freestanding raise money to honour things that Michelle would have wanted the money to go to. And then I didn't intend to keep doing it. But we raised so much money. So we gave money to the school that my girls went to, because the school had been wonderful. There was the head teacher of the school. There was a man called Colin Milner, and he was so kind in the way that he went out of his way to care for the girls in there. And military charities, the Gurkha Welfare Trust, which was my old regiment, and the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund. So we split the money amongst those things, and then having done it once, it felt like we should keep doing it, or maybe I say we, but I just thought we could keep this going. So we formed it as a charity. We went through the rather painful process that you have to do to set up a charity. And again, being selfish, it gave me something to do, Steve, because I'd gone from always having a sense of identity linked to work to not having any work, and not, it's like, so there was something in it for me, which was just gave me a bit of a purpose other than looking after a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Because productivity is healthy. I think for all of us. I'm sorry, I just can't imagine your grief, and I hurt for you. And may I ask, Why outdoor adventure for young people?
Because we used to go to the hills a lot, Michelle.
Yes.
Where we live now is I say mountainous, but I'm aware that saying mountainous to a Canadian, you know,
Yes.
these things are really quite small comparatively, but it's quite a wild area that gets some quite serious weather. And so we used to come up here. We had a yacht on a little yacht on the lake up here that we used to sail. We both loved walking in the hills. So being outdoors was a big part of our lives. So opening that up to young people. Michelle dived as well. We both scuba dived.
Oh, really?
So it's sort of our shared interests that we were trying to open up the possibility of those things for young people.
And you have done remarkable things. Your leadership is sought after. You've written how many books now? Was one on simplicity or something?
No, actually, only one book. There's a lot of copies of it.
Okay.
No, so only one book, which is the leadership book.
Yes. Okay. Got you. How can people get their hands on that? Because out of this, it has the best ending it possibly could. I mean, horrific tragedy. What I say, interrupted by adversity. Life truly was interrupted by adversity. But out of that, you have forged forward. And as you said, it doesn't all happen at once. But I applaud you for continuing, because a lot of people will turn inward. They'll turn to a bottle. They'll turn to a pill. They'll turn angry at God and at others. And many people find a different way. But you found a way to successfully raise two young girls that are in their teenage years, marry again, a successful business. And I can't thank you enough for being vulnerable, but also offering hope to those people right now that need to cling to words like this. Because I would say the same thing. They say time heals all wounds. That doesn't help in the moment. But there's something about the passage of time that allows grief to somehow not feel as sharp. That's the only way I can put it.
There's one other thing I should say, which
Please.
is accept the help where it comes.
Uh,
So after about a year, I hired, sounds like the wrong word really, but an au pair, a lovely, lovely girl from Romania called Amy, Amalia. And she saved me. I mean, she saved me and the girls, actually. She was just wonderful. And the stuff that was overwhelming, because being hit so hard with trauma and grief, it does make it really hard to prioritize, to see things straight. And even, honestly, very easy days seemed overwhelming. Like days where I had relatively little to do. I thought, no, I've got to do the washing, and then I've got to drop them at school, and it's World Book Day, so I need to think about costumes, and there's a children's party, and I need to get presents for whatever. And I was worrying about stuff like that. And then Amy came in, and she was just wonderful, and she stayed with us for years. I mean, I think in the end, for 5 years, she stayed with us while she was studying at a local university and got herself a degree, and she's still very good friends. And this will sound ridiculous, but she asked me to carry out her wedding ceremony about 3 years ago, which of course I've got no qualifications to do, but they got married in a like a registry office. So the official wedding happened in an office, but then we went to Italy, to this beautiful place, and I officiated with the kind of the the public ceremony, and it was lovely. And so we're still very close. So you know, I was helped as well. I didn't do it all on my own, and I couldn't have.
Accepting's a big word, and kudos to you for doing so. It's so easy we've seen it lived out. It's so easy to just want to close the door and tell life to go away along with the people. But people need people. We really do.
Yes. Yes.
Closing question for you. For the veteran right now who's out there feeling lost, or the first responder who can't sleep after a horrific accident they've been there, or for the father or mother who are raising kids alone, what would you say to them when it comes to taking adversity and letting yourself believe that happiness is attainable again?
This is a bit of a cop out, but I don't know, because I think everyone's situation is so different.
Fair enough.
And, you know, if you faced the first responder might be facing something very different from the firearms police officer or the person who's lost a parent.
No, that's you. That's fair.
But the stuff that we've talked about accept help, it's a lot easier to face things when you're open to friends or family. And I think when you isolate yourself and shut down, I think it just gets worse.
Yeah.
And I've never been into drugs, and I've never had. I mean, I like a glass of wine, but I've never had drink in a big way. Those just aren't my vices.
Yeah.
But I think that what I probably would do is try and pull myself away, deal with stuff on my own, and that isn't the answer for, I don't think, for anybody. And look after yourself as well. The running, actually, I'm contradicting myself here, because of course going running is very much a solo pursuit, but I was looking after myself there and rebuilding myself and giving myself time and space. And I think you have to accept that you get damaged by these things, and you have to try and create the time and the space to heal. So if you can, look after yourself. It's okay to be a survivor. It's okay to get on with your own life despite what you've seen and what you've been on the edge of, or what you've been part of.
Moving on is okay to give yourself permission to do, and often people don't. So I can't thank you enough for saying that. Yeah. Folks, adversity interrupts plans. It interrupts comfort. It interrupts who we thought we were. But it doesn't have to interrupt purpose. And Neil reminds us that leadership isn't about rank. It's not about presence. It's not about control. But it's about connection. Reaching out, finding others, putting one foot in front of the other. Neil, where can my listeners connect to find your books, to get access to your leadership tools and courses, and where's the best way for them to get their hands on that and find out more about you and your story?
Well, my leadership learning platform, my online platform, is called Leader Connect, leader-connect.co.uk. There's a lot of videos that I've recorded about leadership and team development and planning and leadership related stuff. But I've also got loads of other speakers on there. So that's my big, that's kind of what I do. It's been setting up Leader Connect over the last few.
Can you give us that website again, just so we can make sure we've got it in the show notes?
Sure, it's leader-connect.co.uk.
Perfect.
My book is for sale. Well, I don't know how you get it in Canada, but it's on Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon.
You can buy everything on Amazon.
And I've done. If people haven't heard enough of me, then there's an Audible version of the book as well.
That's cool.
And Kindle as well. So the book's easy to get, and then social media. Probably LinkedIn more than anything for me. I've never really got my head around the other ones, although I am on them. But LinkedIn, I'm always happy to connect to people.
Neil Jurd, thank you for your time today. You're an absolute gentleman, and I wish you nothing but the best in the coming days and with your future. And congratulations to you and your wife, and to the girls. And a successful career.
Steve, thank you so much. It's been an hour, and it's shot past, and it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
We look forward to checking in months down the road to see where things are. But friends, at SwagAbility, our desire is simple. It's to see individuals thrive wherever life finds them. SwagAbility is a non-profit organization committed to supporting people physically, emotionally, spiritually, as they rebuild their lives after adversity. You could do my wife and I the greatest favor, and that would be whatever is your favorite podcast platform. Would you consider following the SwagAbility Show? And friends, remember, your interruption may just become your mission in life. Until next time, Swags out.